So good evening, everyone. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you for joining us for our special webinar in celebration of World Mental Health Day 2024. My name is Khalid Mohammed. I'm the office manager of the Network organization. Today, we'll focus on crucial and timely topic, gender and mental health. The way gender influence mental health experience is significant. Throughout this session, we will hear from experts who explore mental health intersection with gender and discuss challenge faced by gender groups and share actionable strategies in promoting mental health equity. We encourage everyone to actively participate, ask questions, and engage in this important conversation. Without further detail, let's begin our session. I'm excited to introduce today's speaker, Mrs. Kamayani Bali Mahabal, a passionate advocate with over 15 years experience in gender health and human rights. Kamayami currently serves as the induction and outreach head at Ankehe Helpline and co-founder and head of digital media at Women and Health Together for Future. In addition to her leadership roles, she is a freelance journalist and independent consultant and trainer. Today, she will guide us through the intersection of gender and mental health, shedding the light on this importance of creating inclusive support system and safe emotional spaces. We are thrilled to have her with us, and we know this session will be both insightful and empowering. So let's warmly welcome Mrs. Kayami to the stage. You can unmute your mic, Mrs. Kamayami.
Yeah. Hi. I can't I am sharing the PPT, but I can't see it for myself. Why is that? I was just seeing it,
It's
but
visible
then
for
now
us.
I
Visible to
can't.
us.
It is visible to you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let me see if it works because I can't see it at all. So at least I have to see it, right? I mean, I can't see it. Okay. Okay. Now I can see it. Welcome all. Happy World Mental Health Day to everybody. We'll be talking about gender and health, and I've been a founding member and social media head of Women and Health Together for Future. Women and Health Together for Future is an international organization which was founded in 2019 in South Africa. It has members from more than 22 countries. And all of us together, and I would like to, in fact, motivate you, all of you, to go to our website and become members. There is free membership available, and especially for students who would like to work on the issue of women's and health. So, and now why is it not going down? Okay. So the difference between sex and gender is between our ears and not between your legs. So basically, when we talk about sex, I thought that we would touch on gender first before going to mental health, because the foundation itself, lies in the fact that the gender discrimination is there. But the difference between sex and gender. So sex pertains to the biological differences between males and females, and indicators include sex hormones, internal reproductive organs, and genitalia, and a person can be male, female, or intersex. Whereas gender refers to the social, cultural, and psychological conditions and aspect of being feminine, masculine, neither, both, or anything in between, binary or non-binary. We know binary, you could be either male or female, but non-binary is an umbrella term used to describe gender that is not exclusive within the binary. I wanted to tell you, if anybody would like to ask a question in between also, and if it is not clear, please stop me and we can talk about it. So when we talk about sex, it's the bits I'm born with, and gender is the self identity. How do I identify with the sex I'm born with? You know, I could be a man identifying to be a woman, or a woman identifying to be a man. Whereas sexual orientation is becomes when who you are attracted to. So that's the fluidity where the gender, the whole continuum is there of that. When we talk about mental health, as far as mental illness is concerned, we always say it is somebody else. Acceptance of the fact that there is something wrong with us emotionally or mentally is still stigmatized. And mental well-being, oh, we are okay, everything is fine, you know. But what mental health actually is, it's an ever fluctuating continuum. You can't be happy 24/7, you can't be sad 24/7. The emotions fluctuate, something like your heartbeat, or when you're on ECG, how you see the meter goes up and down. And that's how our emotions, it can't be a flat one way direction. So it is important to understand that mental health is very important, and it has not been important. And it's only after COVID that people all over the world have risen that there is something wrong. Something wrong somewhere. When we were all, in a way, we were all inside our homes. We were isolated. We were imprisoned. There was no social connection or interaction. And then we saw how mental health was affected. So it is not a sign of weakness, which we always say that, because it is still stigmatized in our society, and it is something shameful. It is also when, in the family or your friends say, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. It is all in your mind. And it is always something negative. Are you thinking something negative always? And one needs to understand when your thoughts are not in your control. Okay. Thoughts come and go. So they are not in your control. To think always positively, give yourself auto suggestion, fine. But thoughts come and go. So, mental or health is also not something to think about only when you are broken, you are sad or depressed. It is something like, when you have a fever. I mean, all the medical students say your fever, you prescribe crocin or something. Yeah, we go to a doctor if I have a bad throat or I have a cold or something. But when we are talking about mental issues, and if we say that we have to access help to a counselor or a therapist, there is a big no. There is a big wall which comes there, which is because of lack of acceptance and because the stigma is there. We don't go there. So actually, there is no difference between when I say that if emotionally I am totally drained, or I have been depressed for a long time, and going there, but I'm not going to be depressed for long time, and I'm going to continue being that. The thoughts, the feelings are just going to go up and down, right? So the traditional gender role norms are a system of patriarchy. Anybody here knows what's patriarchy? I want it to be interactive. Can anybody tell me what is patriarchy? I can't see you guys. Anybody here? Okay. Patriarchy is a system where we call it as a male dominated society, right? In our everyday language, we call it sexism or male chauvinism. And this type of silence which gives rise to denial, and they continue to dominate. So it's patriarchy is not against men. It is against the thinking of male domination, that male are superior. And in fact, patriarchy affects women as well as male equally, and very negatively to both the sexes. So patriarchy is a social political system which comprises of sexism and misogyny. It justifies the patriarchal social relationship by naturalizing the sex difference. When I say naturalizing the sex differences, men are supposed to work and women are supposed to be home, and women are the caregivers and man has to go out. This thinking has been for long. But now, as we see how these stereotypes, gender stereotypes, we are breaking. The women are breaking, the men are also breaking. So we have many good chefs around. People are, I mean, men are going to hospitality, men are going to, I mean, they're big designers. So there is a lot of women are pilots. There was a time when one used to think that women cannot do hard labor, but that is not the system now. But still, that exists, that sort of, because if you want, it would be better for a woman to be in a job which is less threatening in the form you're a teacher or you're a nurse, doctor you're going to be. But again, in doctor and nurse, if you see, again, the doctor and nurse relationship, how is again very hierarchical, and you will see nurses, females more as nurses compared to doctor. at least in South Asia. I mean, I don't know, in other countries, in Western countries and developed countries, we are having male nurses, and we are having male nurses now in India also, but that is in minority. So it is a misogyny. It is the policies which enforce patriarchal norms. Yeah. So violence against women takes form within this patriarchal system. Violence against women increases. It is the intimate partner violence, physical, sexual, and psychological. There is sexual violence. There is female genital mutilation. There are forced and early marriages. There is femicide and trafficking. Femicide is when you don't want the girl. Femicide was known earlier when I mean all doctors know how the medical technology has advanced so much. So there was a time when you could not abort, or maybe abort the baby. So when the girl was born, after she was born, she was killed, which is called femicide. And this femicide is a lot in South Asia and a lot in India. Although we have a law about it, which is the preconception prenatal diagnostic test prevention, which clearly says that you cannot diagnose the sex of the child, because eventually the girl child is unwanted. Because in India, for 1,000 boys, we are having around 850 girls, and it has deteriorated as well. And trafficking is again. So basically, if you see a girl child to a woman, it's a lifetime spiral of gender violence, which starts at the beginning. What I talked about, sex selected abortions are there, mal undernutrition or nutritious food, and also the cultural facts, how in South Asia, woman or the girl is the last one to eat the food. I mean, if you're from a poor family, she will be the last one to eat or not even eat. So that's another form of violence which happens. There is abuse, there's teasing, there is child prostitution, there's incest, child labor, little or no schooling. So when you are a teenager, you are coerced into sexual initiations. There are forced marriages. Child marriages is a great issue as well. Then there is rape, there is control over sexuality and sexual orientation as well. Although we have criminalized, but still it is not recognized. The LGBTQ community is still not free in our country to express. Now, thanks to the online, and we have cyber stalking. Now the violence has gone to online as well. So there is date violence also, there is harassment, then there is drugs abuse, the denied choice, and as after marriage you go, there is domestic violence. There are so many. So till the time you die, even for the elderly women, there is abuse from the spouse, or it could be children, withholding healthcare medications, demeaning widowhood. Also there is witchcraft, by the way. So especially in mental illness, if a woman in a rural area is mentally ill, she is said to be possessed, where the people are not very well educated, and there is witchcraft performed, that is another type of a violence which happens. So basically, after COVID, what has happened? 2 in 3 women report that they have experienced violence. Before that, it was 1 in 3. Now it has increased after COVID. And 1 in 2 feel less motivated to. These are the adolescents, the children. UNICEF did study of almost 70 countries during COVID. And this is what they come up, that the depression and anxiety among the young adults has increased. So violence against women and mental illness are very correlated. The mental disorders that are linked to domestic violence and intimate violence include clinical depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorders, and psychosis. Mental health also, especially the reproductive health and mental health are very much correlated, because when a woman, when she is pregnant and does or does not want to have a child, whether she wants to go for abortion or not, and then there is this postpartum depression after the child is born, which is again not acknowledged in our society. So because we are stigmatizing, still abortion still is a stigmatized issue, because as per religion is concerned, it is still not, although the law is there, we do have laws, but still it is very much stigmatized, which again leads to mental health issues in women. So that's how the sexual and reproductive health and mental health are related. When actually, if you talk, whether to a medical professional, do they see that relation or not? Is also that a woman has to naturally bear a child and naturally get married, and it's so natural to happen. And if you go against this nature, so this nature actually is the patriarchal nature. It's the nature of the roles which are given, that you grow, you get married, you get pregnant, I mean, you are basically a reproductive machine. The children are there and you are housekeeping. On top of that, if you are working, well, that's great, but all these roles have to be performed by you, right? But now we are seeing the change where the spouses, the partners, husband and wife, are sharing. But then again, it's a very long way to go, because again, this is a very urban phenomena, urban and educated phenomena, but the maximum population which are living in rural areas are still going through this. So, how health providers can support women who have experienced violence? Listen to them closely with empathy and no judgment. Inquire about their needs and concerns. What do they need? And validate their experiences. Show you believe and understand. Enhance their safety and support. So, actually, in India, we have had this thing of one stop crisis centers. I don't know if in other countries you have that experience. We didn't have. So, who is the first person you think when a woman is abused at home will go to? They won't go to the cops. They will go to the doctors. They will go to the medical professional, right, for treatment if they are really abused and they have injuries all around. So it is very important for the medical professionals who are then looking, I mean, looking, who have such patients. But and a woman is not going to say that. Woman is never going to, because she's afraid. So this one-stop crisis centers here, where medical professionals are also gender sensitized on the various signs of abuse and violence, and they also have counselors. So it is under the one roof. If women comes, there is a social worker as well, and there is a counselor, and there is a doctor to help out. And these have started in all states in India. So Bell Hooks is a American feminist and an author. So when you say patriarchy, it demands the male is not violence, is just not violence towards women. Instead, patriarchy demands all the males that they engage in acts of psychic self-mutilation, that they kill off the emotional parts of themselves. If an individual is not successful in emotionally crippling himself, he can count on patriarchal men to enact rituals and power that will assault his self. So it's always a debate that if you're a feminist, you are anti-men because you're talking about dismantling the patriarchy. But that is not the case. Patriarchy is very harmful for men as well. It's toxic. And the fact is the toxic masculinity. So how do you define toxic masculinity? There are three behaviors. Suppressing your emotions or making distress. I mean, men crying, nobody will accept, I mean, especially male, because that is a very feminine trait, again stereotyped by patriarchy. Maintenance and appearance of hardness, again, that you are so powerful, you are a macho man, and this whole image of being so strong compared to women who are weak. And violence as an indicator of power. That is how toxic masculinity leads to violence against women, and especially in case of rapes. I mean, it is just about power. It is the power a man holds on women, and that comes with this toxic masculinity. So also men are raped, and there is no denial of that. But that is what patriarchy does to men, that you don't talk about it, because if you're raped, I mean, you tend to be weak. And how can men be raped? And patriarchy refuses emotional literacy to men. You are a human being. You have emotionals. So the emotional health of men actually is totally not there if the patriarchal roles are recognized and they are forced to follow the patriarchal norms. Restriction in everything from career choice to clothing. Again, the same thing. Wearing a pink shirt. Is it bad for men to wear a pink shirt? Again, we have stereotype pink with girls and blue with men, boys, you know. So one has to understand the impact of patriarchy has also led to suicide. 75% of suicides are males, and it is the biggest killer for men under 35. Shorter life expectancy, not due to biology, but due to suicides, avoiding doctors, risky behavior, violence, being less socially connected. Also, the fact that if you have suicidal thoughts, if or something happens, you think that you are weak, or society or the people around you, your family, friends, they always say and judge that you are weak. Difficulties discussing emotions, accessing support professionally and personally, more likely to commit violence again. So this suppression, the more you suppress, it comes from, it totally comes in a form which is very negative. And where is that all rage going to go? It has to come out in the form of violence. Addiction difficulties with 70% of those assessing services. So there's addiction issues are there. So when you cannot express your emotions, and if you are feeling that, how will you be get numb? Let's have a drink, or let's take some drugs to be totally numb, because the pain is so much. Expectation rules for men are that you are the breadwinner, you're powerful, don't wear pink, aggressive, views heterosexual as the accepted norm. Again, heterosexuality is the accepted norm, but not the LGBTQ, emotionless. So patriarchy displays harsh contempt for any alleged feminine qualities in men, and this is harmful in that keeps many men in small, silent, lonely cages where they struggle to speak their truth and find meaningful intimacy. So don't be a girl, man up, boys don't cry, you are gay, don't be such a poof. And these are all the peer pressures, again developed by the acceptable patriarchal norms which are created for men. So when we teach boys that real men don't cry or feel things deeply, how can we expect them to feel comfortable expressing their feelings? We isolate boys when we don't give boys a blueprint for feelings, and rage comes in response to this isolation and the culture's demand that boys repress their emotions, because boys have no models for grief, but they have many models for anger, and their response to feeling isolated and society's demand that they repress their emotion turns into. So this is the whole process which really starts when they are born. The gender sensitization needs to start from home, when you are born, when you're with your brother, with your sister, at home. Yeah. And when that connection is denied or shut down, boys feel emotionally abandoned and must cut themselves off from their emotional life to survive in society. This disconnection from their parents causes grief, and that must be suppressed. And suppression and repression lead to depression, and suppressed depression leads to rage. With boys who are socialized to act out their rage, we see violence. The violence that boys and men fall prey to began as an act of violence against them by demanding they cut ties with their emotional life. We murder their spirit because that itself is violence. That is the invisible violence we cannot see. That is also mental health issues. Is we cannot see when if you say you are feeling you are pain. I mean you are in pain. Physical abuse can be seen, but what you're feeling that cannot be seen, and it is invisible and so unacceptable to the people around you. So what can be done? So men needs to, mend your ways, follow other feminists. It's not a woman who can be a feminist, a male can be a feminist as well. If you are an ally, also acknowledge that men do have a privilege. So men, women, equality, we can not talk about it until you get the equity. So equity is when you both are at par. Right now, we are not at par. Hence, there are also the issues of reservation when it comes for women and giving them extra privilege as well. So the question is, don't hate the player, hate the game. And the game is of the patriarchy. So patriarchy game board is there where men and women both fall prey to it. So it is not a system which is anti-man. It is against the thinking that the equality between men and women cannot happen because of the biological differences. So So we need to just stop playing that game of patriarchy, and then only we can talk about equality. Okay, hello guys, how are you feeling? I cannot see anybody. Can anybody say, because I cannot see anybody here. So can you just speak up, because I feel I'm just talking to myself here.
Feeling good, Samyani.
How are you feeling? How are you? I'm asking you, how are you?
Good, 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 good.
Good. Okay.
Lot
You're
of
feeling
information. It's very informative session.
okay. 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 So you said good, right? When I ask you, everybody says that, we are on a call and we say, hello, how are you? Do we really mean that when we say, how are you doing? Or it is like, yeah, chalo. I mean, just say, what is the next question? I want to talk to you. We all say we are fine, but these are the icebergs which we put on our face. But inside, what are the thoughts and feelings going on? Inside it is totally different story. You could be anxious, you could be scared, but you are not saying, because you would be judged. If you show your emotions, you would be judged. Hence, to be acceptable in the society, we all say, I'm fine, I'm absolutely fine. But if we tend to talk a little bit more with our friend, we will see what are the feelings inside happening. And that feeling, I'm drowning. So there are so many things when we see each other among our peer. Why I'm not good as her. Everyone else is perfect, I'm not perfect. There is guilt, there is fear, sometimes there is anger. So there's so many emotions. And good and bad emotion nahi hota. I mean, there is no good and bad emotion, by the way. You need all these emotions for your mental health. Even anger, even fear has a role to play. And everybody's on Instagram here, guys, right? Everybody's on Insta?
Yes.
Ah. And what do we show on Insta? Tell me, what are the reels? Anybody here who makes a lot of reels and is very active? Anybody here who's very active on social media?
Okay, not me.
Yeah.
Anyone
So
else?
so do we show on social media our real feelings? So it is like this big apple. We show that how good, I mean, everything is so perfect and fine, but eventually what is happening is inside. And especially during the COVID, if you would have seen, people were just going on social media doing different things. Somebody started cooking, somebody started growing plants, somebody started dancing, singing, but there were people who did not feel like to do anything at all, right? They were low and they were depressed, and they were consuming all these reels which you were making and how happy they are, but they were not. And then all of them, including everybody, even if you're feeling low, but you would have to be perfect with all the filters around, whether it is Snapchat, Instagram, or anything, that how perfect life is and how perfectly happy you are. And that is a mask we all wear. We all wear it because we do not want to disclose our true feelings, because we feel we will not be acknowledged and we will be judged by everybody, right? So basically, the symptoms of mental, I mean, I've created emojis. I mean, you would know that, feeling anxious or worried or depressed, emotional outbursts are happening. There are sleep issues. People who are really sleeping a lot, there's a change in the behavior pattern. Either if you're sleeping a lot, your sleep is reduced, or you're sleeping a lot. The weight and appetite changes, you are withdrawn. There is substance abuse, as I said, whether drugs or drinking, feeling guilty, and changes in behavior. So if you are an extrovert, if you have been an extrovert, you become an introvert, and that is what COVID also did to many people. There were many introverts during COVID. Everybody went into their shell. So what are these symptoms? Are these concentration problem? Feeling sad, sleeping problem, mood swings, anger issues, suicidal thoughts, excessive use of alcohol, inability to cope with stress. These are the symptoms. And so, overthinking a lot. I mean, I hope, I mean, especially during exams, when you are into exams or something, there's a lot of overthinking. You cannot sleep, whether you'll do well or not. And there are times when you just feel like crying. There is no reason for it. You just cry and then you wonder what's happening. And behavior, I mean, the outbursts of frustration and all. Tell me, how many of you have like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. friends in the night you can call and talk about how you are feeling? Do you have any friends as such that you can call upon? Anyone?
Yes, you have.
I can't. Okay, how many? How many here have that? I can't see your. Can you raise your hands? How many have the such friends whom they can call any time and talk heart out? Okay.
Okay, two or one.
Okay. Yeah, we have one. So you see that? You see that? We do have friends, but do we have one we can really totally be naked in front of a friend, totally naked in for our feelings and emotions, you know? Okay. So there is a critical cloud we have among us, which, um, there is stress, lot of stress when happens. It activates our brain system. There is for suppressing our emotions and thoughts and feeling of shame and isolation, and we become quite self-critical. And it's also the comparison we make with our friends or our peers, that if that person is able to handle or manage life in that manner, I am also in the same situation. Why can't I do that? No, you cannot do that, because you are not the same. No two individuals are same. Even if you are in a same situation, you are not same. Everybody has a different coping mechanism. So what do you do when you feel depressed, guys? When you feel sad, what do you do? What do you do when you feel sad?
Walk out, listen to music.
Right, right. Yeah, it's what you like. It's like the things you like to do, right? You start doing that. This
Yes,
music, listening to music, sleeping, eating, or anything. So there are these different coping mechanisms. But when you go toward addictions, like maybe drug and drinking, that becomes a negative coping mechanism, because you really want to forget the reality and just be with yourself. And just that you don't want to handle it anymore, because you can't handle it anymore. So everybody has a different coping mechanism. So this is like your mental health jam jar, right? Your brain. We have a mental health jar, which is filled with our vulnerability and stressors. So the stress of exam, or a family stress, or a financial stress, these stress then keep on adding in your brain, adding in your mental health jar, which leads to distress and a poor mental health. But what can be done about it? Our supportive friends, a supportive system, if you have, yeah, we could then, through this, all these indicators which have filled our mental health jar, make a jam out of it. That jam which clearly fills up in a very balance. So our jam can become bigger by using helpful coping strategies, what you talked about, right? That various coping strategies are there. You need to find out for yourself what is your best coping strategy with your personality, how your personality is. Some people would like paint, or do something, or have something, go for exercise maybe, or do something. So these coping strategy help you then finally helping in your creating that jam and like stabilizing your distress and being good for your mental health. Also imagine, that it is like a balloon. Your brain is like a balloon, and each puff, each stress, it goes out. So what happens when I mean, you're puffing in a balloon, like in a birthday parties or wherever you have done that, right? So the balloon is there. So what happens when you are puffing, and when the balloon is there and still you are puffing, what happens? What happens to the balloon? Guys, are you there?
Ma'am, we have students who are typing in the chat
अरे
all the
यार,
questions
मुझे
we're
अच्छा,
asking.
मुझे प्लीज पढ़ के बता दो, because I can't see the chat. Can you just read it, Simran?
They're writing bursts. cheerleader chutney, boom, burst.
Burst, right? Burst. So that last puff becomes the burst. It is the last factor when you say you just can't. It's enough, right? So you have to let it go, right? So the puffs have to let it go to for your balloon to come to that again when you cannot control it. Yeah. So there is a burnout syndrome, especially for medical students and even other students as well. There's so much pressure. You need to realize and be aware of the burnout which happens. You know, you're feeling ineffective. There is problem in concentration. There is a lack of enthusiasm. There's no motivation. There is sleep difficulties. You feel exhausted. Even if you have not done anything, you feel exhausted. That is the sign that it is a burnout. You need to take a me time for yourself. Yeah. The self-care, the self-love, somewhere it has gone. It has just gone because we are just running in our lives. So that awareness needs to there. Then you need to just halt and take a pause and think about yourself. What is happening here? What do you need to improve? You need to take a break. So that awareness needs to, which many a times we don't, and we just say, oh, come on, it'll be over. But then that burnout could be really very bad, even for your profession as well as personally. Okay, guys, this is trigger warning. I have talked about suicide, but now we are really going to go deeper into this. And if anybody feels triggered, I think Samriddhi is there. The support is there. You can chat with her if she triggers. So I just want to give this trigger warning to everybody. As per WHO, there are 800,000 people die by suicide every year. And suicide is the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-old, among our young population. So every 40 seconds, someone is dying by suicide. Imagine by the time this webinar will be over, how many must have died and how many people will be left, uh, you know, bereaved. So and for every one suicide, there are 25 people who make a suicide attempt. So 135 million people are affected by each suicide death. 135 people. This is an average by WHO. But 108 million people bereaved by suicide worldwide every year. Yeah. For me, I have been talking that suicide is a global public health emergency, and it has been pre-COVID as well. It is among the top 20 leading causes of death worldwide, with more deaths due to suicide than to malaria, breast cancer, war, and homicide. And in fact, even higher than COVID. I mean, the data is there, but the COVID deaths, the suicides have been more than the COVID deaths as well, you know. And in India, an Indian gives up life every 4 minutes. Every 4 minutes. Okay, can somebody tell me why I have put this? This is a jumbo jet crashing. So when in India, everybody dies every 4 minutes, in a jumbo jet, there are around 460 people. So this jumbo jet, so 460 people are dying every day in India. And suppose they were in a jumbo jet. So one jumbo jet is crashing every day. And are we talking about it? Is anybody talking about it in media? Suppose a jumbo jet were crashing like this, all media, everywhere it will be news. But when we are talking about suicide, it has still not that awareness has still not gone there, So India's growing suicide burden. There was a study done in Lancet, which said from 1990 to 2016, female suicide deaths are 36.6%, while male suicide deaths, a burden is 24.3%. We are having 1/3 of a burden. Global burden is in India for the female suicides. And this data I'm giving you is also for National Crime Record Bureau. 45,000 housewives died by suicide, accounting to 51.5% of total number of suicide by women in India. At this rate, every 9 minutes, one woman is being lost. Yeah. And mind you, this is just tip of the iceberg because not all suicides are reported. NCRB data, the National Crime Record Bureau data, is as per the FIR's file. Now, if we see doctors in India, it was reported that 350 doctor dies by suicide between 210 and 19, and most of them were early career residents. Army professionals, the Indian government recently received a report that over 800 army personnel died by suicide in the last 5 years. And most reports of suicides are among take place in Kashmir and Northeast. That is the north of India, where army personnel are on active. These are the basically border areas of India. And this is a recent report released in August this year that student suicide is an epidemic sweeping India. Overall suicide number have increased by 2% annually. Student suicide surged by 4%. In 2022, male student constitute 53% of the total student suicides. Between 21-22, male suicide decreased by 6%, by female student suicide increased by 7%. So over the last decade, while the population of 0 to 24-year-old reduced from 582 million to 581, the number of students suicide increased from 6,000, almost doubled. Can you see that? From 6,000 to 13,000. I mean, this is the map of India where you see the maximum states. Maharashtra, unfortunately, where I'm coming from, is number one. And actually, we are losing one student every hour in India. One student every hour. So these are the 5 states with the highest suicide numbers. Although 2022 reported an insignificant decrease in student suicide. So because one needs to understand that suicide is still a stigma, the reporting system is very bad. And many a times the suicide deaths are not reported because they feel they have to go through all that procedure with the police and the cops. So if there is a suicide, it could be, they could just say it was an accident or something. For example, in case of poisoning or something, it was just an accident and the person will be taken to the funeral. So I'm saying it is the tip of the iceberg. The data which I'm showing you is a tip of the iceberg, and I can easily say that it is 5 times more than this actually happening. Okay. The proportion of suicide across age groups in 21-22, you see how the proportions have also increased between, if you see between 1% from 45 to 60 years and above 60 years, so below 18 also. And if we see, go by occupation, here is, we see daily wage earners again has increased a lot from 2021 to 2022. The housewives also increased. Self-employed people remain the same. There were the professional persons, unemployed, and students, as we see, are double. The jump has been double. And the reasons for suicide of different age groups have been, almost in all groups, it has been family issues. Although we say that family really the safe space for us, but family issues have been the biggest cause of suicides, followed by then various illnesses, and there are certain causes which are not known, and then there are these causes mentioned as well. Failure in examination, as you see, for below 18 years is a lot, is like 9%. Depression and anxiety are among the leading causes of illness and disability among adolescents, and suicide among the leading cause of death in people. Half of the mental health disorder in adulthood start at the age of 14, but they're undetected because we say, oh, children, oh my God, children, no, children cannot. But sadly, it has increased even below the age of 10 years also. And many factors have impacted on the well-being of mental health of adolescents: violence, poverty, stigma, living in fragile conditions, and risk of developing mental health problems. How does a person who is suicidal want to die? No, they don't want to die. They want to end the pain. Nobody wants to die. But the pain of living, when it exceeds the fear of death, everybody is afraid to die. But when the pain of living is so much that a person is like totally cornered and say, enough is enough, I just can't take it more. And then the person thinks about suicide. So I would like to talk about the myth surrounding that suicide only affects individual with a mental health condition, which is totally wrong. Many individuals living with a mental illness will not have suicidal thoughts, and not all people who attempt or die by suicide live in a mental illness. In fact, 50 to 60% of people who die by suicide were not being treated for mental health issues at the time of their death. Asking someone if they are having suicidal thoughts will put the idea in their head. I mean, do you really think that if I ask you, are you suicidal? It will give you an idea and say, oh, what a good idea. I will just go and die by suicide. Are we giving ourselves such a great thing that somebody, if I ask somebody, somebody is going to die by suicide? Is it possible? Tomorrow, if I tell you jump in a well, will you jump because I'm saying so? No. But still, we don't ask because we think we might implant the idea. You know, the idea cannot be implanted. It is there. And when a person thinks about suicide, it is not just suddenly a person thinks and goes. There has been a long trauma, long pain, long thought process gone into that. Discussing suicidal thought reduces the stigma and shame and can help to give the person an opportunity to get the help he or she needs. A person talking about suicide is just seeking attention and won't actually attempt. Now this is another story. We say, oh, that person is very attention seeking, he or she keeps on saying I'll die by suicide or something, but does not. A person talking about suicide is crying for help and is thinking of ending their life. That's a fact. People who die by suicide are selfish. This we think a lot, especially for the family left behind, that this person did not think. Do you think that the person who died really did not think? They did think a lot, but they felt that their living is making miserable for the people around them, and then living in pain would be so miserable, so it is better to go off. So people die by suicide because they want their pain and suffering to end, and suicide is not the only path they see out. They don't want their life to end, but they don't see any other option. That is where the support system, we need to have a supportive healthcare system where people can approach, and talk about it. Most suicides happen suddenly without, no, absolutely not. That, sometimes we say, uh, actually, I wanted to ask how many people here know anybody who has died by suicide? I mean, like, I would say doesn't know anybody who has died by suicide. If anybody can tell me that, who has not died by suicide? Are there people who in their circle, friends or family, do not know anybody who has died by suicide? Simran, please tell me if somebody has written in the chat.
No, ma'am.
Right? So we all know that, right? And then we all think, why didn't that person talk to me? Why didn't that person tell me that he or she wants to die by suicide? My question to you guys is, did you ask that person ever? Are you feeling suicidal? Did we ask? Did we ever think of asking? And suppose if we would have asked, maybe we would have got a reply. That person did not talk about his or her feelings because that person felt judged. And that you will not understand what they are feeling. Because when you are feeling something, it does not match with logic. Logic and emotions don't go hand in hand. No. There is no logic in emotion and feelings, and the suicidal thoughts come and go. I mean it's okay to have them if anybody is having here, suicidal thoughts. It is when how you are feeling at that time they are coming, but can we just share it without being judged about it, right? So we also know of many comedians. I mean, Robin Williams died by suicide. In India, there have been some celebrities during COVID who have died. I mean, I think all over they have died, and the talk about suicide has increased, and also the fact that person who's happy cannot die by suicide. I mean, many comedians have, so yeah. So these are the signs and symptoms we have already talked about: behavior, feeling, thoughts, and physical. These are the thoughts which keep on coming. Life is not worth learning. I'm worthless, guilty, you are evil. Everybody goes on a guilt trip. And these are the symptoms which we see. So we need to speak up. It is important to speak up early with either friends, peers, work colleagues, and someone you trust. If you're feeling that life is not worth living, call a friend or someone close or a helpline, and someone who you feel would be best take you out of that situation, because there's nothing worse than being alone. And when you're feeling your world is collapsing, you're feeling you're, like sinking, you're just sinking deep in water, or you're just sinking in a desert. I mean, those feelings are okay to have if you are having some time. Do not question that, but just acknowledge and accept. How talking helps. It is a positive event to speak. It's a process of talking about it that helps. It doesn't matter whether it sounds articulate, because our thoughts so jumbled. Sometimes you'll ask a friend and friend will say, this has happened, that has happened, this. There's so many things are happening. It is okay. You have to just start a conversation. You will feel relieved, and you feel you are not alone. Everybody who looks prim proper is, emotionally they are not. Actually, nobody is. Talking is the way out for all of us. So start the conversation, have the conversation. We are meant to share, and we are meant to talk. And now, if you are talking to a friend who's a suicidal, please see you don't do all this. Okay. If you have a friend or somebody, don't promise secrecy. Don't say to your friend, okay, I will not tell anyone, because you don't know if that person really needs help and all. Then you'll have to tell, whether to the parents or a guardian, or if it's a child. Don't invalidate a person's experience. Others have gone through much worse. These are the statements we make. Why everything? You have money, you have house, you have everything. Why are you crying? Why are you crying? Even others have done that. When we start comparing, please don't do that. Don't judge people for expressing their distress. Stop crying. It's weak to feel suicidal. Be strong. Again, weakness. Again, these are again the patriarchal norms. Do you see how patriarchal norms, slowly come into our day-to-day language, day-to-day speaking, how we are doing? Do not shame or make them feel guilty. How could you do this? How to your family? Think about your family. Hey, we all do that. We all say that. Think about your family. Think, are that person is going through the pain. Can we just acknowledge it? Can we just talk to the person than the environment, his or her, around his or her? Don't try to fix or control their feelings. Please don't do that. Don't be angry if they aren't receptive at first. I told you how you should handle the situation. Still, why you're feeling this way? So if you ask somebody is suicidal, and that person at that particular time I say, are you mad? Why should I be suicidal? Okay, it's fine. You'll say, I thought, I got those signs or whatever, symptoms. And maybe after talking for some time, because they don't trust, then they'll say, oh, yes, I was, you know. So set realistic expectation, right? Thank you for sharing with me. Others you trust can reach out to help. So create that trusting, supporting environment. Normalize their experiences. You seem to be going through a very challenging time. So you have accept, acknowledge, show empathy and support. I understand how you're feeling. This is a safe space. Safe space is very important, and I won't judge you, right? That is being non-judgmental. Recognize their struggle. It must be so difficult to cope with all this alone. This is so, recognize it, accept it, show your support in finding solution, and like saying that I know there are no clear answers, but together we can navigate together. Check in regularly with your friends, who you think are could be. Just say that there is this safe space available.
Ma'am,
So when
Ala is
you,
writing in chat.
sorry.
The problem is, we have a student writing in the chat. The problem
Uh,
is how to know the right person to talk to. Some of our loved ones really care for us, but don't know how to react with them.
exactly. I totally agree with you. We cannot talk. We feel that. That is why I'm just going there right now. That you need to talk, and it's okay, Kito, when you're saying how you're feeling. I'm talking about Ankahi helpline, which we have formed, and there are many other helplines, because people are from different countries here. This would be specific to India, but there is a network called Befrienders, which is worldwide. If you will Google, and befrienders are based on the value, the helpline is based on the value that they will be confidential, anonymous, and non-judgmental. Okay. So Ankahi was recently launched on October 1st. It is a heartfelt initiative that was born from the compassion and dedication of former volunteers of Samaritans Mumbai and our beloved Menkar. You see the photograph of Manohar Agnikar, whom we lost last year, but he was the driving force. So Samaritans Mumbai has been a helpline for the last 30 years. It was the first international helpline of Samaritans UK. But now the volunteers have shifted and formed this new helpline called Ankahi. Our helpline is dedicated in providing emotional support and a listening ear to individuals in distress. So Ankahi means unspoken word in English. So whatever the unspoken feelings and words you have, we are there to share with you. And Samriddhi, could you just share the social media handles of Ankahi as well as WHTF? So, so we are there to provide you that safe space and non-judgmental, and we do listen. That's all we do. We do not provide any solution to it because we strongly believe that you are the best judge of your own life. We help you to navigate through your problems. We are there to listen to you when nobody else is. So it is, we provide band-aid. Now we would love students to also become volunteers, whoever are in India. And you need not have a psychology background for that, but we have a rigorous training for that, which is 7 days, and you could become a volunteer. So the get home message is, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to be okay. And the 5 pillars of mental health are: we need to connect, we need to be active, we need to be aware, learn, and give. You know, connection is very, very important in our lives. And freedom from stigma, and not to judge people who are saying they are depressed or anxious or going through. So let's break that stigma which is there. And this is our helpline number, 8655486966. These are all volunteer. It is a totally voluntary organization. I just wanted to share you. This was our reel on Instagram.
Just can't go on anymore. Just need to talk. I feel so sad. Nothing is okay. Everything is too much. Can you please talk to me? You have reached Ankahi helpline. Can I help you?
And we also have email befriending. So some people like to write by email. Some are not comfortable talking. So there is an email as well. hello@ankahihelpline.org. So guys, that's that. Uh, any questions, comments? How is everybody feeling? I would like to know. How are you feeling? How is everybody feeling?
Great. It was a very informative
Great.
session, ma'am.
Sorry?
It was a very informative session. We learned a lot how
Okay.
gender and mental health are correlated.
Okay, great. Any questions, any comments, or any thoughts? And again, I want to say that this is a safe space, and let us, whatever is said here will remain here, in the sense, I mean, if we are putting this recording out in public, I think, Simran, if anybody wants to talk now, that recording will not go public. So if anybody would like to talk, we are here. I mean, anything, any issue?
I have question.
Yeah.
Okay, Mrs. Kamayami, considering
Yeah.
suicide attempts are often criminalized in various law,
Mm,
specifically in our countries, what
mm.
impact do you think on this individual willingness to seek help and overall mental health outcome?
Yeah, so you're saying it is criminalized. Suicide is criminalized in your country?
Yes, suicidal attempts in the
Yeah,
law.
there are 20 countries. I mean, in our country also it was criminalized in India, but it has been decriminalized. But there is this
Yeah.
Indian Penal Code where still it is there. Yeah, so that's a legal fight again. But then again, we don't need the law. So if we have a support system among us, right? The question is, when does a person take that step of getting off the cliff or just taking that last step that they cannot go through. If we have a supportive environment now at Ankahi, I think even SNO can start if they want, and I could help as well, that having supporting circles, listening supporting circles. We had started supporting circles by talking with each other about what they are going through right now and being there and without judging. That is the most important thing.
Okay, another question in chat.
Yeah.
So if no, I have other question. Can you better explain differences in suicide rates among genders, and what role in gender sensitive approach to play in prevention?
The suicide rates, the male suicides are higher globally compared to females, but younger girls, if we see younger girls, and that again has to do with the fact, in fact, Samaritans UK was started because one of the young girls, she started menstruating and she did not know what this is, and she died. She just killed herself because she thought there was physically something wrong with her. She was not aware about so the younger, and in India specifically, what is it that as I said, one third of women's suicides, one third of global suicide is happening. In fact, India is a suicide capital as such. The interventions, as I said, the intervention is providing a safe and supportive space, and also the fact of the availability of therapists and counselors is not there in India. For every 100,000, for 100,000 we have 1.5 psychiatrists. Can you believe that? I mean, and so that's why at Ankahi, what we are saying is, you need not be a medical professional, at least to hold the hand for a person who's having suicidal thoughts and provide help. But so what we have done is building resources of ethical counselors and therapists and psychiatrists available. Also, there are certain places, where it's only psychiatrists and there is no counseling. So for everything, giving medicines again, has some effect on the health of the person. And it's only when you are totally psychotic, or you really need, or in chronic depression, you really need that also. But main, you see, our helpline, earlier helpline, Samaritan Mumbai, we have been running for 30 years. Imagine, for 30 years it was running. If listening was not helpful, we would not have existed. People were still calling. We were not giving them solutions. We were not telling them what to do with their lives. We were just listening. And still we were there. And in fact, let me tell you, many callers became our volunteers as well. You know, because they found they liked it, the way the space was provided and the way we train and we talk. So that's why I say that we need to increase these supportive safe spaces. The problem is right person to talk to. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
If anyone have a question, please write in chat box, or you can
Or you
raise your
can
hand.
talk as well. You can just unmute yourself and talk. We are not a big group. You can unmute and talk. It's okay.
Someone
And please do follow the social media handles of both Women and Health Together for Future. If you have any questions about Women and Health Together for Future or Anka, you can also ask that. How many of you were in Ubuntu 2024? Was the students there in Ubuntu?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, you participate there.
Simran, why didn't I see you there? I met Ala. Ala, your earlier president, was there.
Yes, me, Khalid, and Ibnomar, we had joined virtually.
अच्छा हाँ मेरे को बोला you oh yeah I was told you didn't get visa na right, you joined virtually, yeah many
Yes.
students could not make it But hopefully next year, yeah, I think you should not have any issues. So, guys, anything else? Anybody would like to talk?
Ines have question. Uh,
Yeah.
you can unmute your mic.
Oh, hello everybody. I just wanted to ask uh, if we should allocate more resources to the prevention of the mental health issues, or should we like focus more on treating the pre-existing disorders? Like, should we
No.
shift from prevention to treatment, or what is the benefits or the impact of such shift?
Yeah. Okay. So it has to go simultaneously, but definitely our focus has to be prevention. The people who are going through that illness, we are providing them also a space to talk to. So, for example, in our helpline, people with mental disorders also call up. And we do not discriminate on that lines. But definitely, I really want to say that the government, I don't know, governments all over, I think the mental health budget is really, really very sad. It is not given in India. It's really very bad. It is just 1% of GBT. So there are no resources available. Again, there are these NGOs or these activists and who are mental health advocates who are providing spaces. So definitely our advocacy has to be towards getting more resources for mental health and also working towards prevention. So the prevention and treatment has to go side by side, because if the treatment, the people who are going through treatment, they need to get good ethical treatment. You know, ethics also is a big problem. Some psychotherapists and even the counselors today, it has become like a market where we, like market when we go for shopping. In India, it is so expensive to, go for therapies and all that. So that is why it is very important to develop free resources for people to approach, and at least affordable resources, because poverty again is a major issue. Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
that was very informative. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, Reddit is asking, some argue that some informations might lead to misinterpretations if provided by an unprofessional person. For example, stories related to suicide. What do you say regarding this?
How Reddit? What is unprofessional person? Can you tell me what is unprofessional person? What are you referring as unprofessional? Are you saying a person who's not a doctor or a psychiatrist? Do you mean by that, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. The person who is
So,
not professionally engaging mental
so
health
Yeah,
facility.
yeah. No, no. People argue, but you see, this is data. I'm not a psychiatrist. I am a clinical psychologist, but there are people who are not into psychology also. But this data, what I showed you, is the WHO data at the global level, which clearly
Yeah.
tells what is the status of mental health. And India, again, I'm giving you government statistics. I have not made them. So these
Mm-hmm.
statistics are there for anybody to interpret. It cannot be misinterpreted at all. These are the facts,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. Okay, this is just the tip of the iceberg, because we do not, suicide is still stigmatized. Nobody says those words. There was a time when HIV, the way HIV was, we never used to talk about HIV AIDS. A few years back, it was a stigma. With suicide, it is the same thing. I mean, when I go to
Mm-hmm.
talk to students, I don't want to name the university, but I went to the psychology. I'm talking to psychology students, and I was told, please don't use the word suicide. I mean, how ridiculous can that be? Because again,
Yeah.
I could plant the idea. I mean, this is the head of the department of a psychology of a very well reputed university telling me that. Can you,
Mm-hmm.
so it has education really, education in psychology really helped at all? No. That awareness, we need to spread awareness about this, and the myths about it. Yeah, Samriddhi.
Yeah, I think Hermione, she was also referring to the stories about suicide that media portrays. So, how we should hold
Ah,
the media also accountable to report
ah.
suicide sensitively. There are guidelines from
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
WHO.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, absolutely. The stories, see how a person has died, what they have used, and how hanging and all, these can be triggering, you know. We need not tell all that situation. How will it help if tomorrow I die by suicide? The fact how I've done that, it is just the curiosity. Oh my god, she died, how did you do it? But is it going to help anybody? In fact, it could trigger, because the person who's thinking about suicide, when they see, they would say which is the best way to die, you know. Best, and with the no hurt. Because if I say that I'm going to die by suicide, I do not want to survive at that time, because the pain is so more. And I am afraid that if I survive my suicide, what will happen to me? What happens to a person who survives a suicide? Tell me that. What do you think happens to that person? What will happen to a suicide survivor? What do you think will happen?
They are shamed for attempting it.
Yes, they are shamed. How could you do that? So if I'm really thinking, and I want to be really sure that if I cannot do that, and I do not have a support system, I have to be really sure about that, right? So suicide stories have to be told. I mean, there are media guidelines. I mean, obviously, I think WHO also has guidelines. In India also, we have guidelines. Like, for example, language also. We should not use, like, that person committed suicide. Now, committed is really related to a crime, if we say that, you know, the person died by suicide, you know. So the language is also there, not really, but it is also how it is done. So these media story need to be very sensitive, not portraying the methodology and happened and all that. So that really acts as a trigger for people who are thinking about suicide. For example, in Sri Lanka, what had happened? The farmers' suicide had increased a lot in Sri Lanka, and what they did was they realized the farmers were dying by suicide with the access to pesticides. So, as a strategy, what was done is the pesticide was kept under lock and key, that it is not easy accessible, and they saw the suicide rates going down. So, can we do that? The access to such things, if it is not there, because at that particular time, the pain I'm feeling and I want to give it, if I have access, I'll go through that. And also, alcoholism is also, the research has shown to be related to suicide. With consumption of alcohol and drugs has increased, and related to suicidal feeling, as very toxic. The relationship between drugs, alcohol, and suicide is very toxic again. Any other questions?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Atika.
Ma'am, thank you for such a nice session. I actually did not want to ask a question, but I wanted to say something that I am from Aligarh in UP,
Okay.
Uttar Pradesh,
Hmm.
and I did my MBBS from here, and I was working in Delhi as a non-acad JR for some time. And after the incident of in Kolkata, my parents were very
Hmm.
terrified, and they called me back home. So I was
Hmm.
feeling very low these days, and also I was
Hmm.
surprised that for the first time ever, I heard about this helpline, this Ankahi you said. So I'm
Yeah.
saying that I call myself an educated person. I think that
Hmm.
I'm aware enough, but still these helplines and these things are not accessible to us. So you can imagine the people who are living in the peripheries, or who don't have access to so much information. So
Yeah.
what do you say about that?
Yeah, exactly. So that's where we have to develop. You see, we have to develop these connections and networks. So SNO, I think, as a result of this webinar, if you could collate some good resources of helplines which are available in other countries, in all countries, and make them accessible, you know, to everybody. And Atika, I also want to say, that rape has been happening in India for a long time. I mean, I do know it has happened with a medical professional, but imagine with a medical professional, it has happened. The hue and cry has been like that. But there are, again, I want to say, Dalits and tribals. I mean, the rapes are happening every day and the media is not reporting. Just similarly as they are not reporting about the mental health issues as well. It was only then it became an in thing also. It is, when the journalists think, "Okay, what is the news peg to it, right?" When Sushant Singh Rajput, I'm talking about, was an Indian actor who died, in our helpline, after his death, our calls tripled. I mean, 3 times. We started receiving emails. There were like 1,000 emails a day. Suddenly, when a celebrity does, it comes in news, and then people start feeling all that. And also during the exams, our calls increase by students because of anxiety during the exams and when results are coming of 10th standard and 12th standard. So yeah, so I think we need to raise awareness, and that's when Simran, I just came from Ubuntu, and I contacted Simran that we have to talk about it, and we should create strategies and how in different countries. In fact, as SNO, I mean, if you can have a small project on this also, what is the status of mental health in your country? We can have a small secondary research we could help you out with. What are the sources available? What is the stigma? What is the data with WHO is there. So each country will have to come out with their own, and then we can have again a webinar where all of you then share the status of mental health and the suicide rate in your respective countries. So how many countries, SNO represents how many countries? I mean, how many countries member are there in SNO?
Ma'am, we have a representation from Southeast Asia, from India and Nepal, and then we have from Sudan and Ethiopia, and then from Canada and United States.
क्या बात है, बाकी countries का क्या? What happened to the other countries? South Africa, no? What happened to them?
We contacted the students. We are meeting up with them within a few days. There is not an active chapter there yet.
And Indonesia and all, Philippines, वगैरह, there are, see, in TUFH, the other working groups or you have, or the other things you have, I think you should do that. Okay, bhai, all the students from all the Southeast Asia represent. I was earlier the Southeast Asia representative. Now there is, I think, Anju, somebody else is there. My tenure is over. But whoever is on the TUFH board of that particular region, I think you need to connect with them, and sort of that communication has to be there. That has not been there. That has been my experience. It has not been there. We all are very busy, I do understand, but I think this issue is very important. So if SNO can do that, it will be really great. And I'm there to help you in any form, any support you need. I'm there for you.